Thought they were taking names. So. Well, which religion are you, sir? Yes, yes. Indubitably.
Derek, we're rolling. Are we okay? Should we shut off?
You're fine. Another way to consider man's continuing fascination with the idea of some secret knowledge is that while there is something unknown to ordinary man, the actual reason for the inclusion of the word secret in the term secret knowledge is because it is not a knowledge at all, but an experience. See how it works? Or as Buddha's girlfriend said as she cleaned under the bed and saw for the first time the coiled springs thereunder, so 'tis not merely your ample girth that gives this splendid ride. Life has many shock absorbers and shares them with man, in that he now has words to protect him from the dangers of direct perception. Daddy, a boy asked his father, is that why so many mystics wear shades and some don't? And the old man had the insight, not the answer. In the world of the mind, there is no such viable creature as resolution. Answers and solutions to man's problems are terminations of the situation, not additions thereto. Ponder the ball-busting implications of this apropos the Enlightenment. Seeing himself in the mirror, a man thought, "You look like hell." Then quickly added, "But that's not really me." To which his reflection responded, "Ah, but it is if you think it is." As he left the room, under his breath he muttered, with some gusto if not understanding, "Goddamn old mirrors anyway." A philosopher once showed up in a wood and began lecturing the trees on the benefit of knowing yourself. And one of them thought, "Sap keeps me alive. Sap flows through me through the day and through the night, through the cold and through the heat. When I am pleased and when I am sad, it flows. What more need I know?" According to cosmic legend, in a distant galaxy once lived a certain mystic who, according to legend, claimed to be the equal of any tree. Royal table etiquette. "Wipe your plate," said the queen to the prince. "Wipe your mind," said the king. As per another legend, Mary and the lamb were, long ago, up for early knighthood. But a thunderstorm appeared, and the lightning drove away the silence that bestowed this peaceful, useless rank. As she was straightening up his bunk, Columbus's girlfriend said, "Does it do you any good to see over the horizon before circumstances are such that seeing over it will do you any good?" And the adventurous one thought to himself, "It never struck me before, but she must come from a family of bankers or merchants or others with that two-dimensional conception of profit." And in a related story, it need be noted that if history could complain, history would complain. And a boy asked his paternal one, "Papa, is that why mystics have such atrocious memories?" "Close, kid, but what you really mean is that's why the awakened find memories to be so atrocious." Assistance and Dependence, a poem. The weak won't help. The simple won't help. Hell, everybody wants help. Help! For me. On a faraway planet occurred the first instance of a man with the hunger turning down the offer of available food. A more expansive taste directs what the alert consume, regardless of the mind's incessant, indiscriminate insistence of, here, eat, eat. Children and dumb animals are force-fed. None but the awakened pass this stage. And yet another definitive pot shot at it. Mysticism. One of man's many mental social activities, but the one with hardly any socializing about it. Daddy, asked a young boy, is that why so many mystics are made into comic book heroes? Son, have you considered the possibility that you may have this backwards? And on the spot, the kid had a mini DC stroke. Touched down near by direct conception. Questions, questions. The many questions of man. Do you have to be crazy to be creative? Do you have to be creative to have any chance of escape? Who do you have to sleep with around here to be creative and get out of here? No. And finally, why are old shoes so comfortable, free, and invisible? Huh? Questions, questions. Ah, sweet Venus, save us from the answers. Definition. The Enlightenment. The biggest mind game ever played on man. Long dramatic pause. Big boy's version. The Enlightenment. The biggest mind game man has ever played on himself. Blasphemy and related sorts of rude behavior. A simple man's crude attempt at awakening. As he was deeply engaged in his daily efforts toward that extraordinary goal, one man's mind interjected itself and asked, may I say something here? And be double dragged down, but what if the man didn't finally get so good that sometimes he could say no? Who but deliriously dazed, sophisticated, and out-of-phase man would recruit pyromaniacs as firefighters? This is precisely why roaches, for their annual Atlantic City beauty pageant, invite men's mind to select the winner. For they're the only ones who can see any distinction between all the nasty little creatures. As she was changing the sheets one morning, Muhammad's latest girlfriend said, I understand you used to be in the exterminating business. And he just coughed up some phlegm. Which, if you consider it in a certain way, can be taken as a responsive, even pithy to the point of bluntness, reply. Civilization can be seen as a verbal world of conflict, devoid of resolution. And now, by request of at least half our viewing audience, we repeat a previous item. There is but one division of man worthy of note, and that is the distinction between those who know and those who don't. Any and all other groupings are moot and irrelevant. And by the by, to be honest with you, nowhere near half our audience requested that be redone, but it cost me nothing to appear charitable. A boy asked his father, what would it be like if half the world was awake? And the old man just shook his head and said, it'd ruin the whole thing for the rest of us. Yeah. No one who had sailed with Magellan later wanted to do so with Columbus. And no matter that Columbus lived and sailed first, this is metaphor we're talking here. Mystical friggin' metaphor, a land in which time and sequence are inapt and potentially infectious. And in a related story, a man told himself, "Put on your glasses," and replied, "But I don't wear glasses," and told himself, "Then put out your eyes," and suddenly realized what all this talk of sailing and seeing horizons and thinking about travel was actually all about. Well, let me level with him. He didn't really realize all this. I just said he did. But I made him up in the first place, so why can't I say that? And if I can so easily say that about him, then why can't he maybe actually do it? Seeing himself in the mirror, a man thought, "Boy, am I pissed." And his reflection replied, "Who could blame you?" And truth is, two types of men could. An enlightened psychologist and an enlightened mystic. One would forgive and the other would try to leave town. As she carefully cleaned the petri dishes, Pasteur's girlfriend prescribed, "Take 2 10-milligram time-release sap capsules before bed." "No, wait," said she, changing into her systems analysis schmuck. "Just study a flow chart thereof." Any who wish to visit a mystical monastery do not have far to go, assuming they can get there. The use of travel as a transcendental metaphor made one man so angry that he left town. Consider the futility of having a Pegasus and still attaching it to a merry-go-round. The reason innocence and childlike qualities are so oft praised by man is they represent a non-mental, uncommitted consciousness. See, it's easy to fool a mystical mind. All you've got to do is say, "May I fool you?" And it never objects. Once dung slugs learned to fly, only the most deranged among them ever returned to the cesspool. Daddy asked a young lad, "Is that why in all tales mystics talk so much?" And the old man, giving you some credit, did not reply. The debate can never end, or people might wake up. In the mystic, has progress its only silent form. Back to life hides itself. And thus the secret hides itself. Thus the secret of life hides itself. And it does so in part via ceaseless debate. If you recall the last few times we were talking about how easy it is and how apparently justifiable it is to attack, to question the sanity, the intelligence of humanity on all sorts of fronts. Politically was the example I was been using, but politically, religiously. You can holler that everyone is a bastard. Everyone's a love child of Captain Irony. And there's a reason for it. You understand, no matter what you do, you look at everything in the world from a certain view. An ordinary mind would do it from look at things in which it had no hardwired interest. That is, you can look at someone else's religion, someone else's political system, somebody else's philosophy, and you can find that they are based upon irony. Unintended, of course. That is, they are based upon making proclamations as to what we're up to and then failing miserably over thousands of years. Not just short time failure, continual failure, which of course they don't realize it, but is the assurance of its continuation. But it is quite easy then to attack. It is quite easy and understandable to attack people claiming they want peace while their forces are still out in the street fighting. Ordinary minds go no further with it and do not see the basis of it. And it provides just further friction fodder to keep everything running. But there cannot be an end to the debate. There cannot be such a thing in the man's civilized world, which is man's intellectual world, as resolution. When you have what appears to be resolution to a problem, by their definition, any problem that man has, any circumstance that needs to be fixed, arranged, a problem, is always based upon debate now. Although they may be out there fighting, there may be physical activity going on. Nowadays, the fight is by and large, from their own view, intellectually based. They would say philosophically based. That we no longer want to live under your system, or that we know we can no longer tolerate you operating under a religious umbrella so foreign to decency and yet so close to our borders. The more a group is civilized, the less the people can say that they're fighting over jungle reasons, beastly reasons, territorial reasons. And so although they are certainly still fighting, to use the political example, that they are fighting certainly physically. The proclaimed basis, the motivation for the fighting is intellectual. So therefore they're sitting down at a peace table nowadays. And it's always been true with the civilized people, that they're not waiting apparently upon one side to logistically prevail over the other. That is, to physically defeat the other. They reach a point that they sit down, and even whilst they're yet fighting physically, killing one another, they sit and they talk and seek a resolution to the conflict. And that is where they seem to fall down, is what I've been slinging about with the example for the last few times about groups of people today, 5,000 years ago, but right today, civilized people, or otherwise, from all other appearances, they're civilized, and there they are killing one another, and innocent women and children, and even attorneys. Well, I said innocent women and children. So. Yeah. And they cannot stop fighting. They say they want to. They will look a mediator dead in the eye, a reporter dead, honestly in the eye, and say, yes, we want to stop, and then they cannot seem to stop. And you say, well, all you got to do is you quit pulling the trigger. All you got to do is physically cease the hostilities, which is the physical hostilities killing one another. So you think, well, you got to stop. And they go, well, and they look off. And they go, well, and you say, well, why can't you? And they go, and they will eventually come up with some answer. But understand the answer is always based upon some intellectual paradigm, some mental reason. It still does not explain anything. But they are seeking what seems to be, no matter what they call it, they are seeking an intellectual, a mental resolution to the problem. That is also the whole thrust of civilization under whatever guise it's going under, whether it's legislation, whether it be shifts in morality. It is always on the basis that we have now a problem. It may not be an absolutely new problem, or it may appear to be a new problem to them. But the point is, they now say we have a problem, or we have a situation that is turned from merely a situation into a problem, or a more severe problem, a problem to which we must now give serious attention and seek a resolution. There is no such thing as a resolution. Any of you who have at least 3 good eyes, operationally there is a resolution, but it's extinction. The mind looks upon resolution as being something that will be, although I know that your mind does not use the term, and you have to watch this now, to realize that operationally this is how the mind works, although it does not use the words, and once I put the words on it, a man's reasonable mind can go, oh no, we don't think that. Yeah. But hell yeah, they do. You just can't point it out to people, because if you point it out to people, they can always resist, which is why you can't go out on the street corners and preach this. Oh, sure you can. Fill in the rest of the joke. Without any analyzation, which again, follow it, if it's pointed out verbally, the mind will deny it, and thus it's a waste of time. But the mind looks upon resolution in a nonverbal way. It looks upon the whole resolution as being an actual object, as being actually something added to the situation. That we have this conflict here, this problem, and what we need is a resolution. the mind does not think in this way that I'm about to do a little more specifically, but what it is thinking is like, I have to do a simile. Or I will. I don't have to. Oh, all right, I have to. Let's take it physically. And it's the mind working in the area of technology or of science as opposed to political. We're in a position to where it's extremely hot, so hot that we cannot survive, or so hot that we cannot fulfill the task of being civilized and make progress. The mind comes up with something. There must be a resolution to this great shifts of inclement weather to which we physically cannot seem to adapt handily. So the mind works on it and comes up with the idea of air conditioning, central heat, structures. But you see the solution, the resolution to the problem was actually an addition of something. That if we lived in an environment, if we were closer to the equator and civilization, all of humanity, or some large, if that was where Adam and Eve was, and Ken and Barbie, and they had to start all of civilization, the mind's going good, and they're beginning to invent things, they're dreaming of all sorts of things, and Adam's already come up with the idea of, why don't we put together a Leonardo? I mean, they're on the right track. And it's so hot, though, they can only work 2 or 3 hours a day. It's just beginning to wear them down. They must have a resolution of the problem. The resolution becomes central air conditioning, or air conditioning. But you understand, it is an actual addition. Physically, in this case, they actually have to come up with some sort of physical, material, technological, but physical, you understand, something to resolve the problem. So you had this problem, unbearable heat. The solution, the resolution of the problem was this piece of physical equipment that you added to it, and it resolved the problem. Now, that's easy enough to see, although, again, I know the mind doesn't normally put it in those terms, but thus far you can't argue with me. I know, except for you. The mind operates on the same basis, without any verbal analysis of it, when it gets to such things as personal conflict, whether it be between nations or individuals. But let's go back to the conflict between two groups of people. We have hostilities. They both say we want to stop it. It is untenable. It is unbearable. It is almost as unbearable to us in our nervous system, in our human goodness, in our minds, in our hearts, in our souls. It is almost as unbearable, they could say to me, as my example of people attempting to develop all of civilization and technology under such torrid conditions, heat-wise, as to make work over several hours a day impossible. They could say, yes, I understand how it would be to try to work under those kind of conditions, pouring sweat, and it's 120 degrees day in and day out. We could not stand it, but, would say the people in my non-scientific example, they could say, we feel a similar desperation. We experience a similar feeling of this being totally unacceptable, that we're killing one another. So you understand, they need a resolution. And they could say, we need a resolution as much as those living in such unbearable, torrid climatic zones as we need here to resolve our armed conflict. I repeat again, the mind does not think this way, but they look upon a resolution as being something that's going to be added to the situation. Now, you know it's not. Once I put it this way, that's why I said if you put it to people's minds, a reasonable, sane man, he'll go, oh, you're full of it. We don't think that you're going to bring about an air conditioner over here and say, well, this will solve the problem of the conflict, which is about what it is in the world of the simile, since I made up the other one, is about what it is. And certainly, though, when the mind's faced with that, it will say, oh, we don't think that way. And as soon as it's put that way, you're right. You can't convince them of it. It's just insane. But back to it, if you can follow. The mind does think about the resolution to a problem as being some addition to the situation. That here's the problem, it already exists. It's like a thing. If you talk to people about armed conflict right now between neighborhood X or country X and country Y, they think about the conflict as being an actual something. Now, if you question them too far, they'll deny it. a sane mind. They'll say, nah, because we're talking about the conflict is actual warfare. But when the mind thinks about it, it thinks about it as being an actual something. The resolution to a problem is always looked upon non-verbally. It's just the way the mind works, as being something that will be added to it. And it's not. Resolutions do occur, but when they occur, it is extinction of the problem. It is the termination of the circumstance. And no one thinks about it anymore. If they do, it's a footnote in history. It no longer has the ability to ignite the nervous system, even of outside observers. It is then a speculative area of interest, to wit, historical. It drops off of the radar screen, the passionate radar screen of human awareness, if a problem is resolved. Humans have a kind of, I know everybody's waiting for me to take a side street, so here's one, just popped right up. We've covered it in other ways, but it's people have a kind of awareness of this and being desperate for entertainment. That is, distraction of the human nervous system at a higher level, ordinary people, is why people have such an interest, individual people, in their personal past. If a man considered it was a problem smoking because he's spitting up pieces of his lung every day, and he stops, that should be the end of it, shouldn't it? Yeah, a fat chance. What's he going to do? He's going to drive you crazy the rest of your life every time you see him. Unless he comes up with some new disease, develops cancer of the Grover organ or something. A man will continue to talk about. You understand? Or a man can complain about his mother's driving him crazy and ruined his life, and she'll die. And you think, well, at least that problem's over. Not hardly. An ordinary man is inclined to then almost add to it, but at least he will not let it die. He will not let it disappear. That he wants to bring it back up about, well, looking back on it now, I'm not sure that she actually mistreated me that much because I know she had her own problems, but even if she did mistreat me a little, it didn't give me enough attention. By God, can you imagine how bad I feel now that I was bad-mouthing her, I was complaining about her. It's the very hour when she died in another city, and I didn't know it, and there I stood. Suddenly a telegram came, your mother has unexpectedly died, and there I was in the middle of haranguing her to some of my friends. Can you imagine? Gee, how will I ever live through this? It is simply the matter, not making fun of psychology, which certainly deserves it, but that is, as opposed to what I said, a problem, if it reaches a resolution, which if a man's problem is drinking, smoking, or his mother, and he quits smoking, quits drinking, his mother dies, I mean, what better resolution do you want? Not that it accomplishes anything, but because you can look at one way is why you're inclined to laugh when I bring it up this way, is you can say, well, not only does that not accomplish anything, it's almost them trying to back up. They're almost trying to go in reverse, which is not exactly it. It's just a desperation to be entertained, to be distracted, or I'll get to in a minute. What they're actually seeking is another state of consciousness, which is what everybody's seeking. But what I wanted you to see was that the debate can never end. Men cannot reach in the world of civilization. Men cannot reach resolution to their so-called problems. They define the problems. I'm not here to define it. Anything that life makes men call a problem, there is no resolution to it. There is the extinction of it. There's the dismissal of it. There's the death of it. But there is no resolution in the sense it can happen momentarily. Well, now I see. And that's the end of it. You have not accomplished anything. There's another way I might also point out, if you want to be charitable to men, that someone who quits drinking then will drive everybody crazy for the next 20 years about how long it's been. They got a watch now, and they know how many days, how many hours since they had a drink, and they will regale you with all the very interesting stories of the terrible things they did when they were drunk. One way you can look at it is that the resolution did not resolve their life, and once they quit drinking, however a man would determine that he's officially the government's drinking society or drinking council officially investigates him or questions him and goes, well, you have officially quit drinking. And he thinks, boy, I know that was silly. Everybody would have some idea like, all right, if I can make it 3 days without drinking, I'm cured. So the guy goes 3 days without drinking. Think about the fun. Or maybe he hears that it takes 2 weeks for alcohol to physiologically be completely out of your body. So he decides that 2 weeks, if I can go 2 weeks without drinking, because I've never gone 2 hours without drinking. If I can go 2 weeks without drinking, that'll be it. And he decides it. Think about that 15th day. He gets up and he's done it. I mean, think what fun that would be, or whatever hobby it was, or to lose weight. If I could just lose 20 pounds. And the day comes, it happens, you can go, woo, and jump up and down, wave your little arms, and flap your wings, and bop all around the house and the yard. How long is that good for? Call 2 or 3 people, and yeah. You know, they're real delighted. And you call everybody you know. In other words, the thrill is good for what? A day? So the point is, there it was something you worked so hard for, this resolution, and you find out, ugh, that wasn't actually something. I mean, you try to run with it. You try to go down the street and tell everybody about it. You call people you don't even know. You call relatives you haven't seen in 20 years to tell them that you've lost 20 pounds or actually gone 2 weeks without a drink. And boy, are they delighted to hear this. I mean, so you find out, here it is, the resolution was like something you had accomplished. Again, the mind doesn't think about it as something you acquired, but it looks at it as though this will be something added on to me. That drinking is killing me. I just decided this and I'll quit. Or being overweight. So you lose 20 pounds. Where it was, the mind thinks about this is going to be something I get. Which makes it worse. You're on a side street off the side street, in a sense, is what makes it worse. Or it's what gives the impact and causes people to look away very quickly when it gets into areas that areas that are more material, such as I would be very happy. I would be a whole new person if I had $100,000 cash money in the bank, or if I had a Corvette paid for. And that's the old story. No offense to Corvettes or bank accounts, but a man gets that money, and if he's sane by all other observations, he gets this thing that he worked so hard for, and he gets it and goes, God almighty, I'm so happy. And he drives it around, shows everybody he knows. You know, what's that? Good for a day. And so each person, how long are they going to put up with you bragging about and strutting around when they want one? 5 minutes? Then you're like the guy that quit drinking. You'll be down to driving up to strangers' houses in the neighborhood, say, hey, this is my new car. In other words, this thing you worked so hard for, that you were so delighted for, it was like you added something to your life. Everybody knows, but they have to look away and forget about it. It's not a moral lesson. It's just that you get something even materially new, that you resolved something in your life. It was an addition to your life, and you got it. And God, was it great? Not for a day, 2 days, and it just kind of goes, and suddenly it's just a car. Suddenly it's just you and your old body again. Yeah, it's just you and your old lungs and your breathing. Yeah, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I lost 20 pounds, I got a Corvette. And yet, it's still friggin' me. Well, there you see. Of course, then you're getting very close to the transcendental, if they could do it. It's not that it's just me, the old physical me. It's the old me in consciousness. And then they have to go, I'll snap out of it. You can't sit around. Come on, let's go do something. Then you go do something. That's why you get by in life, except for mystics. There is no resolution to man's problems. Something else we've hit once or twice, but if you'll look at it again, maybe in a different way, weather forecasting, financial forecasting, absolute, undeniable public failures. I mean, just continual failures. And men continue to entertain it. There's one greater example, but I guess it's the diamond business. Yeah. But back to this, everybody, the weather. Now that electronic and the world of information is so I'm informed, so darn important. Look at the time given over in the print media, but the electronic media. We forget the print media. Them dinosaurs. That's I saw. Can you believe it? I was in Los Angeles last week and saw a guy walking down the street had a book. But anyway, Probably on drugs. Look at the time spent giving the weather. And it's easy to make fun of the weatherman, but notice nobody makes fun of it. Some comedian might be able to milk one more joke out of it. It's not even funny. I mean, it's the point. And there it is. They will devote locally and on the national news, they will devote time, have a man all dressed up, literate, looks good, obviously been to charm school, speech school, and he'll stand there with these great maps. The government, our iron government's got all these billions of our dollars up there in these satellites, and they can show all kinds of photographs, and they can tell you in detail. They can forecast in detail what happened yesterday. And they show you all these maps, and you're just used to it. It's just entertainment. So I'm going to get to it. It's just a shift in consciousness. It's the only reason you watch TV to start with. But there it is, or financial forecasting. You just about, well, I was going to say PBS. They devote whole segments to it, and their magazines are big time, $50 or $100, big money. But they devote financial forecasting. It's not just the publicly available news outlets. People go and pay for it. And anyone with just any intelligence, anyone with enough intelligence to have enough money to invest knows that financial forecasting is at about the same level as weather forecasting. And weather forecasting now, after all the great strides have been made, and it's not because of man's intelligence. Well, it's because of man's lack of intelligence that he keeps putting up with it, in a sense. But it's not because people are stupid. It's just that life is less stupid. That there it is, the weather forecast. I was saying that the financial forecasting, I don't care who it is, and the man could be making $200 million a year as the head of XYZ investment or some brokerage house up on Wall Street, and there he is. And he gives these forecasts, and all you got to do is keep track or just ask somebody else, another forecast, and they say, oh yeah, we tracked him. If you'd been investing with him over the last 2 years, you'd have lost every cent you had. And yet there he is next week. There he is. Something big happens in the news, and they interview him on TV, national TV. Financial forecasting, and not just personal investment, as you usually know, but the whole thing about people. Everybody forgets that life does have a sense of humor, that you can actually get graduate degrees in economics. But they'll go to some college and they'll say, what do you think? What's happening? The prime interest rate has gone up or down, the trade deficit has risen, and a man stands there looking very intelligent. And he'll say, well, there's no doubt what this portends, and he'll tell you what this portends, and which is not a bad word if they'd change one of the letters. I mean, he's pretending he knows, doing the best he can, but everybody knows that knows anything. The point is that financial forecasting is on the same level as weather forecasting, which cannot be outdone by a farmer in Iowa going by whether the cow wags his tail in the morning or not. Everybody knows that over and over. You cannot depend on it. It is a public acknowledged failure. I mean a glaring, a public, a renowned failure, and people still turn it on and entertain it. You understand? Entertain it. Actually, turn on and say, wait a minute, I don't hear what the weather is. Yeah. Well, wait a minute, there's the head of such and such investment house. Wait a minute, I don't hear what he says about getting in a new money market fund. It is just an absolute failure by their definition, and yet men continue to entertain it. Rather than just pick on that, the others I've done is religion. Religion is such a failure by its own definition, not mine, by it saying, well, here's what we're up to. And if people had intelligence that had a memory like, and that was not just sequential, had a memory like laid out in a grid on a city street, that you could move from one street to another, or maybe stand on your toes on First Avenue, look over in Second Avenue where you were 2 seconds ago. But so it's not my definition. I got no problem with religion, neither do you. But by their own definition, religion is a much bigger failure. I mean, failure is just grabbing at the skirts of religion. Or nowadays, psychiatry, which is today's religion. It is just absolute failure. There's no way around it. And all you got to do, you can take any psychiatrist, you can take any priest, rabbi with any intelligence, and you point out to them, they go, yeah, if you're going to call it a failure on the basis that we say we won't do so-and-so and we can't do it, well, yeah. Then they got to immediately look away. But it's an absolute failure. Why do men continue to entertain it? Why is it continually a part of human life? Because it's not a failure. That's just a damn word. What you're asking for is whatever the problems are to be resolved. Well, I've got a little money here, and I don't want to lose it. I want somebody to, I don't have enough to retire, and I'm certainly not going to be able to live on my Social Security, so I've got a little money here, but I don't want some crackpot or some flim-flam man to get hold of my money. I need a resolution to my problem. I want somebody to solve it. There is no solving. I worry about what's going to happen to me when I die. I wonder about why I'm sick and I don't deserve it. I wonder why my mind sometimes won't stop. I'll go see a priest. I'll go see a psychiatrist. I'll go check with a weather forecaster. I need this resolved. I know you think you do if you're ordinary, but there is no resolution to it. There's always the big D. Move to Dallas? No, close. There is no resolution to human problems. But you understand that there's several ways I have and could put it further. That is the whole basis of the futility of any form of criticism. That is the reality behind all of these things about don't condemn the Volkswagen in your brother's eye until you remove the Cadillac from yours, or however it goes. Don't pick on a Native American until you walked a mile in his regions. Don't criticize your fellow man. Ease up, it's only God can, all that. They don't know what they're doing. Because there is no moral basis to it. There is no spiritual basis to it. There is no intellectual way out of it. Which is what I know didn't ring a lot of bells last time, but I was pointing out that is actually, in one sense, all that stands between a man and awakening, is not realizing that. They keep thinking, well, I'm going to find a resolution. I'll find the secret knowledge. The secret knowledge, I know I've hit that several times, and I started off tonight's page, and it didn't ring a lot of bells. It's said that the fascination with the idea of secret knowledge, which is another way of putting the awakening of people involved actively with this sort of thing, is that secret knowledge, and the basis that I'll find a secret. But you understand that still, that there's a resolution, there's a secret knowledge. It will be something I add to me. Oh, there is no such thing as the fascination with the idea of secret knowledge is based upon misspeak from a more enlightened view. And that is that the reason that we've got two things, secret knowledge, a modifier, and an object, a something. That you can take any decent would-be mystic in the world and say, in some ways you said, I know the secret knowledge, I have access to it, I have seen it once, I won't tell you the whole story. Well, I will if you want to, so long as I saw it and I'm about to die, I need to share it. Or, sign over your Corvette and I'll share it. Whatever it is, you talk about secret knowledge, and that immediately strikes everybody that ever begins this journey. Secret knowledge, they just know there's something I need, and it's got to be a thing. It's something I need. Secret knowledge. You got an object and you got a modifier. And I pointed out that the fascination is actually misdirected because the term is misdirected, except in the news item I didn't point out how, which I can't do, but that's not going to stop me now. You can't point out, but here it is. In the term secret knowledge, secret's added because there's no such thing as knowledge, and it misdirects you, see? You have won the max luggage, if not the Corvette. You understand if you call it secret knowledge, and it doesn't have to be that spooky. It's the same way that people take the Bible, the Quran, the Old Testament, Buddha's writings as being Vedimikams. They take it as being actually holy writ. They take it as being secret knowledge. Even though it's out there, they say that it is on a basis secret knowledge. You understand there is no knowledge. There is no resolution in the sense of something to add to you. So, as to keep people from going, well, screw all that and just sit down and have a picnic or fall asleep and make Rip Van Winkle look like a get-upper and goer. That is, sleep for 70 years and then just die. They add the modifier, secret knowledge. But you understand what that does? There is no knowledge. So by calling it secret, who's ever going to know? Now, does it make any more sense, which is When I say there is no resolution to a problem, there's no answer to a question within a closed system other than the extinction of the situation that seemed to give rise to the problem or the question. I mean, and that's not a resolution, you understand. Practically speaking, if you were suddenly diagnosed as dying of cancer and the cancer went away, you consider that resolution, hey, love it. You got no complaint. But the mind normally thinks about resolutions when you get above the non-physical or get above the physical level. A resolution, indeed, would be something like secret knowledge. I am driven crazy. I've tried all my life. I've read every book that I've ever seen that had anything to do with a so-called awakening or being more enlightened or having a heightened state of consciousness. I read it over and over, and I read the damn methods, and something is lacking. What is it? I'd give anything for it. Right now, I'd be willing to sell anything I've got if I had some reasonable basis that a guy somewhere, I don't care, India, Tibet, Russia, I'd go there. But you understand what you're saying, what the mind is saying. I don't mean some individual, everybody's mind. The resolution to this problem, and this is not just a problem, I want a new car, this to would-be mystics is the problem. It becomes the focal point of their life. That the resolution of the problem has got to be the acquisition, I could go, of the secret knowledge. Yeah. If I knew it, there's something lacking. I keep doing these things. I've tried to meditate, I've tried to sit, and I've done all sorts of things. I've gone through rituals that I could read about. I've tried to follow these disciplines that could be described, but something is lacking. They even insinuate in some of the books that this is not all of it. There's something that can't be told. Secret knowledge. Nuh-uh. There is no knowledge, but rather than drive everybody crazy, you think, well, there's secret knowledge. And that way, you're okay. Now, I don't mean that there's, of course, I'm not inferring that there's no reality to the awakening or that the whole description, but the idea that it is something you add to you, it's a nice pacifier. It's like a comfy seat. Once you get on that express, you just, well, at least I'm out of Paris, on the way to Istanbul. And yet it seems like, my God, who would have ever guessed that Yugoslavia was this big a country? I assume, but now you're getting the gist of my Orient Express metaphor. That is, you do get out of Paris and you get going, but after that it's like, God damn, it seems like I have been in Yugoslavia now for what? About 47 years. Yeah. But see, you keep thinking getting to Istanbul is an accomplishment. It is a resolution that it will be something that you get there and, I've done it. It is an adding on to you. That's the way the mind thinks about it. That if I get to Istanbul, that will be a resolution. That will be an achievement. That is something that I can now, I got there. As long as you believe that, you can't got there, which is the old joke. Well, it's not real old. It's about 5 seconds old now. I was going to use, I wanted to talk about something else for a minute, but talking about no resolution, and that civilization itself is dependent upon. Civilization, in my use, being the widest possible metaphor for the intellectual-based life of man as opposed to that which could be whittled down even theoretically into just a crude, feral, physical, biological, survival-based existence. But civilization is absolutely dependent upon the fact that the debate never ends. Civilization is dependent upon the fact that there is no peace in every sense of the world. The idea of a nice little philosophical Rousseau painting the peaceable kingdom in lines, well, they got that out of the Old Testament, come to think about it, but lions will lay down with the lamb. You know, the peaceable kingdom, heaven on earth. I'm going to tell you what, if you're ever around, you see lions begin to lay down with lambs, kiss your ass goodbye. I give you my personal guarantee, you got another, I'm just going to give you a rough estimate, not being a forecast. You got less than a day's time, probably less than an hour, and this planet is gone. Humanity is gone, because when lions start laying down with lambs, that's the end of it. But think what a nice dream. Civilization is dependent upon the continuing debate. Now, it does not have to be on the basis of armed conflict. It obviously still needs a good dose of it, but I'm saying the real thing is the conflict up here. It has got to have that conflict. That is civilization. Put the other way I was presenting it, there has to be a complete lack. There has to be no resolution available. That is civilization. It's a world of verbal conflict, intellectual conflict, devoid of resolution. But no one knows it. Everyone thinks we've got to settle this. We have finally got to come to one great political theory to run this world. Or we got to come up with one religion. We got to combine them all. And then people do it individually. That is, the things that now separate humanity, the things that cause conflict, we're beyond the point, by and large. Say the cutting edge of society's rank and file parade marchers. We're now beyond mere physical conflict. We're beyond just the point of fighting over room to live and territory and water. I mean, the day's coming that will be perhaps even space colonies and living somewhere else. So it's not just fighting physically. We're no longer fighting over our position in the food chain, the physical food chain. We're now fighting over our position. It's the conflict, the arguments, the debate between our intellectual food chain. What should prevail? Who should be preparing the operational, the controlling political paradigm, the philosophical? Who should come up with a market scheme by which all economies are run, all that? And they keep saying we've got to resolve all the conflicts. There is no resolution. That's part of what keeps it going. Or as I'm saying, without it, there would be no keep on going. And on that basis, I was going to go back and, out of all the great examples, I don't know why I never did even hit it, but the diamond business, it actually swallows, if you can see it, it swallows any criticism, it swallows even my own example of pointing out that psychiatry and religion, by its own definition, cannot succeed, cannot resolve the problems it confronts or addresses, because if it did, it would commit suicide. There is no resolution to psychological problems. There are no resolutions to the so-called spiritual questions. I tried to slip it on you last time, if anybody remembers, that pointed out that even today, men take science by and large as to be that area that addresses and answers man's pressing problems. And yet, men are given to say that yes, that may be true, but science does not actually answer our deeper spiritual problems or questions. And I point out, well, there's a reason why. Men don't have any. Men just have the need to debate. Men just have a psyche, an intellect, a nervous system run by polarized forces, by dual forces, and a three-dimensional reality. And therefore, there's always conflict. But there's no spiritual answer. That's just like men look at science. And science says, well, religion, let's, right quick, imagine two people, two minds, two areas of human life talking. And a spiritual person, a religious person says, well, religion, science may be a lot, but it's not everything. And the guy says, yeah, but look at the rockets we got. Look at central heating. Look at indoor plumbing. He says, yes, but that does not answer the spiritual problems.
No.
And that sounds like, well, you're right. You're right about what? All you're saying is that there is no resolution to any problem, but you change the game verbally. And you could reverse it. At any rate, you pluck it out of one area and put it in another and say, well, but it doesn't answer these problems. And the other party's left with, I mean, they can get mad and try to punch you in the nose or leave. But if you're looking at it, you go, hey, he got him. Because even though they are accomplishing something over here, science or whatever it is, he's right. It doesn't answer the spiritual problem, like what happens after death. And you can think, hey, he got him, except this. You ask the guy with the religious view, position, well, you answer it. I was going to say that besides all of that, besides weather forecasting, political forecast, financial forecasting, being undeniable, publicly known, renowned, continuing, abject, complete, total failures, men continue to entertain it, seek it out. All of those are good, but the diamond business is almost the supreme example of civilization. That surely a lot of people know. If you don't, it's easy. I mean, it's easy to find out. It's no great secret, but it's everybody operates, at least in the parts of the world, which now is almost everybody, that diamonds are something of great value, great scarcity, and people will work for them, and they give them to one another, and it represents something. But the thing is, the diamond business, rather than people going out now, well, people still do it. They think, well, I'll make my fortune because diamonds are in such demand. If I can go out and you find out some diamond mine that's been abandoned, or you find out that it's a known fact geologically about how diamonds are produced from volcanic eruptions, and then You find places where there are rivers and downstreams, and they go out, and you can get in almost any river or stream, any kind of watery area lower than a volcanic area, and you can find diamonds. And you think, God, that's it, because they're in such demand. If I find them, these big companies, there's always a market for them. Yes, in a sense there is. But the market is by one group of people to keep them off the market. And you can hear that. And it's not even a conspiracy. I mean, a lot of people would like to think it is, but it's so public it's not even a conspiracy. Any more than saying, well, wait a minute, financial forecasting is a conspiracy. They don't know how to do it, and they made us think that they do. If a man said that, you could say, do you keep up at all? He'd go, yeah. And you think it works? I mean, is there anything that you ever thought it worked? And you'd have to go, well, no. And then you have to look off because he thinks it's a conspiracy, if he wanted to. You've got a business. Now, forget diamonds, although I still use it for a minute as a comparison. Here is the intellectual world of man, if you want to see it in action. Think about it now, but I'll go back to the diamond business because it seems like we're talking about something. People believe, just ordinary, reasonable people believe. They operate on the belief, if they're interested at all, that diamonds are scarce. And everybody knows in the world, all the way from food to non-physical, to artistic, to non-physical properties, artistic properties, intellectual properties, the scarcity of something determines its value. Everybody knows that. If there's a big freeze and the orange crop's destroyed in California and Florida, the price goes up. There's not enough oranges. Same way with diamonds. And people know, well, if I can go out and find some, there's a market. Somebody will buy it up. Yes, they will. Not because they're scarce, to keep them off the market. I mean, so many diamonds that if they were just thrown out on the market and nobody had any control over it, diamonds wouldn't be worth anything. Not in the sense, I'm not talking about industrial, but in the sense that diamonds represent, which they obviously do. That's part of the advertising, is that diamonds, you're not simply paying $5,000 for this because it's beautiful. Sure, it's beautiful. Sure, it's beautiful. But it represents something else. It represents like how scarce such beauty is on this planet. It represents how much you would give up to give this to a loved one. How much you would have to sacrifice to pay. I know it seems like a lot, $5,000 for this little bitty thing, but what it represents. And people go, yeah. And it's not just because they're stupid, because it's easy to find out. The conspiracy long ago, the facade is gone, that it's not worth anything like that. And there's no scarcity of diamonds. Contraire, the main job of the companies that run the diamond business, their activity is mainly concerned in buying up diamonds to keep them off the market. All right, now that sounds like, oh, some kind of affair. Now take that and forget diamonds. Think about man's intellect. Think about the idea of secret knowledge. Think about that there are resolutions to problems if we could just get our hands on it. They're scarce. They're hidden. They're hard to find. Are you an idiot? Well, if you're wearing a diamond, you are. If you ever bought one, you are. If you ever looked at an ad and thought, I wish I could afford one, you are. Of course, I shouldn't say idiot. You're normal. Oh, yeah, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. Tune in next time when I'll get around to the subject.